Imagine crushing your first clove. The sharp aroma fills the air, and something ancient releases into the room. Within minutes, this simple bulb will enter your bloodstream and reach vessels you've never consciously felt. A signal will travel through 96,000 kilometers of arteries, capillaries, and veins, initiating a transformation that most people dismiss as folklore. For years, we've been told that high blood pressure requires pharmaceuticals, that arterial damage is permanent, that dietary interventions are supplementary at best. But what if that understanding dismisses something humanity has known for 5,000 years? What if your cardiovascular system possesses a capability that modern medicine is only beginning to fully comprehend? The human vascular tree wasn't designed for synthetic molecules, but for compounds refined through millions of years of plant-mammal coevolution. What if, hidden within this bulb cultivated for 7,000 years, lies medicine that works not by override, but by conversation? When you eat garlic daily, you're not just adding flavor to food. You're initiating a molecular cascade that reaches into every arterial wall, every endothelial cell, every pressure point in your circulatory system. So, what actually happens when sulfur compounds from this ancient plant meet the smooth muscle of your arteries? What hidden processes begin before you finish chewing? The answers are both remarkable and humbling, and they start before you swallow. Within 20 minutes of chewing your first clove, your conscious mind registers almost nothing. Maybe warmth spreading slightly, a lingering taste, barely a physical sensation worth noting. But beneath this quiet surface, something extraordinary is occurring. Allicin, garlic's primary active compound, enters your bloodstream. This molecule doesn't exist in intact garlic. It forms only when crushing or cutting ruptures cell walls, allowing the enzyme alliinase to convert allin into allicin. This sulfur-containing compound is volatile, reactive, precisely what your cardiovascular system recognizes. Within minutes, allicin reaches arterial walls throughout your body, from the massive aorta leaving your heart to the microscopic arterioles feeding your fingertips. The first response is subtle but measurable. Smooth muscle cells embedded in arterial walls begin relaxing. Blood vessels dilate microscopically, imperceptibly to you, but real. Your arteries aren't being forced open. They're receiving a signal, responding to molecular information they evolved to recognize. The pressure required to push blood through these vessels decreases fractionally. Your conscious mind registers almost nothing, but your arteries have received a signal they recognize, one encoded in human use across millennia. By the end of the first week, something measurable shifts in your vascular biology. You might feel slightly more energetic, notice warmth in your extremities, but the changes remain subtle. Blood pressure readings, if you're tracking them, show the first consistent drops. 5 points systolic, maybe 8. These aren't placebo numbers, these are biological shifts. Beneath the surface, garlic sulfur compounds are triggering nitric oxide production in your endothelium, the single cell layer lining every blood vessel in your body. Nitric oxide is the master vascular regulator, the signal that tells arterial smooth muscle to relax, vessels to dilate, blood to flow with less resistance. Modern pharmaceuticals spend billions trying to increase nitric oxide through synthetic pathways. Garlic does it naturally, through mechanisms encoded in plant chemistry and mammalian biology. Your arterial diameter increases throughout your entire vascular tree. Wider vessels mean less resistance. Less resistance means lower pressure needed to circulate blood. Research documents consistent 5 to 8 millimeter mercury drops in systolic pressure within just 1 week of daily garlic consumption. Your blood vessels aren't being forced open by chemical override. They're remembering how to relax. Around day 14, something happens at the microscopic level of your arterial walls that changes everything downstream. Your blood pressure readings show consistent improvement now. Not occasional dips, but sustained lower numbers. Energy feels more stable. Sleep might improve. These surface observations trace back to one source. Your endothelium is healing. This thin cellular layer lining your arteries has been damaged by inflammation, oxidative stress, years of processed food and chronic stress. When endothelial cells dysfunction, they lose their ability to produce nitric oxide efficiently, to regulate vascular tone properly, to communicate with the smooth muscle beneath them. Endothelial dysfunction is the first step toward cardiovascular disease, the foundation of arterial damage that leads to heart attacks and strokes. Garlic's organosulfur compounds act as potent antioxidants, reducing oxidative stress bombarding these delicate cells. They neutralize free radicals before damage occurs. The endothelial cells begin producing nitric oxide more efficiently, responding to signals from blood flow, hormones, and metabolic demands the way they were designed to. Research shows endothelial function, measured by flow-mediated dilation, can improve 15 to 20% within 2 weeks. The lining of your arteries, which has been screaming distress for years, is beginning to whisper something different: repair. By week 4, your arteries possess a capability that cardiovascular medicine once thought impossible to reverse without surgery or aggressive pharmaceutical intervention. Your blood pressure is notably lower now, consistently showing readings you haven't seen in years. Your body feels different, lighter, as though internal pressure has been released from systems you couldn't consciously perceive were strained. Beneath these surface improvements, your arterial walls themselves are transforming structurally. Arteries become stiff through multiple mechanisms: calcium deposits accumulating in vessel walls, collagen fibers cross-linking excessively, chronic inflammation thickening tissue. This stiffness, called arterial rigidity, means vessels can't expand and contract properly with each heartbeat. Your heart must work harder, generating higher pressure to push blood through rigid tubes. Garlic's compounds, particularly S-allylcysteine, begin reversing this stiffness. Arterial compliance improves, meaning vessels regain their ability to expand appropriately. Calcium deposits in arterial walls, visible on CT scans as coronary artery calcification, begin mobilizing and clearing. The elastic fibers woven through arterial walls, which had become rigid and cross-linked, regain flexibility. Research documents 10 to 15% decreases in arterial stiffness within 1 month. Coronary artery calcification scores can reduce measurably over sustained periods, not because you've earned vascular youth, but because your arteries were designed to heal when given the right molecular signal. Around week 8, the benefits extend beyond your arteries into systems you didn't realize were connected. Overall health improves in ways that seem unrelated to blood pressure. Headaches that plagued you diminish or disappear. Fatigue lifts. If you have inflammatory conditions like joint pain, they might ease noticeably. These aren't coincidental improvements. They trace back to one mechanism. Systemic inflammation is breaking. Your cardiovascular system has been operating in a state of chronic, low-grade inflammation. C-reactive protein, a marker of inflammation measurable in blood tests, has been elevated. Pro-inflammatory cytokines with names like interleukin-6 and tumor necrosis factor alpha have been circulating at levels that damage tissue over time. White blood cells have been treating your arterial walls as threat zones, attacking endothelial cells, driving up blood pressure as part of the inflammatory response. Garlic's sulfur compounds inhibit NF-kappa B, a master regulatory switch that controls hundreds of inflammatory genes. When this switch turns off, the cascade of inflammation subsides. C-reactive protein levels can drop 20 to 30% within 2 months. Inflammatory markers decrease significantly. Your immune system, which has been at war with your cardiovascular system, receives signals to stand down. Inflammation was driving blood pressure upward. As it subsides, pressure drops further. Your immune system has been at war with your cardiovascular system. Garlic brokered a ceasefire. 3 months in, something remarkable happens in how your body regulates pressure moment to moment, rather than as an overall average. Your blood pressure is more stable throughout the day now. It doesn't spike dramatically when you encounter stress. Standing up quickly doesn't cause momentary dizziness. Your heart rate responds to exertion appropriately, then recovers efficiently. These improvements in pressure stability matter as much as the average numbers. Beneath these observations, your baroreceptors are regaining sensitivity. These specialized pressure sensors, embedded in the walls of major arteries, detect blood pressure continuously and signal your brain to adjust heart rate and vascular tone accordingly. Chronic high blood pressure dulls baroreceptors. They stop responding accurately, losing their calibration. Garlic's effects on arterial compliance help baroreceptors function properly again. Your autonomic nervous system rebalances itself. The sympathetic branch, responsible for fight-or-flight responses and elevated pressure, becomes less dominant. The parasympathetic branch, responsible for rest and digest states and lower pressure, gains influence. Heart rate variability, a marker of autonomic balance and cardiovascular resilience, improves 15 to 25%. Your body's pressure regulation system isn't being overridden by a drug. It's being recalibrated, restored to its original precision. 6 months and beyond, imaging reveals something that seems impossible to reverse, without intervention far more aggressive than eating food. Your blood pressure sits consistently in normal range now. If you were on medication, your doctor may have reduced or eliminated it. You feel cardiovascularly younger, as though years of damage have somehow unwound. These aren't subjective impressions. They're measurable architectural changes. Your arterial geometry is physically remodeling. Chronic high blood pressure causes arteries to thicken their walls, a compensatory response to constant elevated force. The thickening narrows internal diameter, paradoxically increasing resistance and pressure further. With sustained lower pressure from garlic, arteries begin remodeling back toward healthier dimensions. Arterial wall thickness, measured via ultrasound as intima media thickness, decreases 5 to 10% over 6 to 12 months. The internal space, the lumen where blood flows, widens slightly. This is structural reversal, not just improved function, but changed architecture. Your vascular tree is rebuilding itself into a younger configuration, following the biological principle that structure follows function. Blood flows through wider, more compliant vessels with less turbulence, less resistance, less force required from your heart. Your arteries aren't just functioning better, they're rebuilding themselves into younger versions, structure following improved function. The number on your blood pressure cuff tells only part of the story. That measurement captures pressure at one moment in large arteries, but the transformation extends far beyond that single data point. Every organ fed by your cardiovascular system benefits from sustained lower pressure and healthier vascular function. Your kidneys, which filter your entire blood volume dozens of times daily under constant pressure, experience less damage to their delicate filtration structures. Glomerular filtration rate improves or stabilizes instead of declining. Your heart undergoes reverse remodeling. The left ventricle, which thickened from years of pumping against high resistance, begins returning to normal dimensions. Retinal blood vessels in your eyes become healthier, reducing risk of vision damage from hypertensive retinopathy. Your brain receives better blood flow with less vascular stress. Stroke risk decreases. Cognitive function improves because cerebral perfusion is more consistent and less traumatic to delicate brain capillaries. Every organ that was compensating for a high-pressure environment begins optimizing for normal pressure. Garlic's protection extends beyond pressure reduction to direct cardioprotective effects at cellular and molecular levels. Research documents 15 to 20% decreases in cardiovascular event risk with sustained blood pressure reduction through garlic. Lower blood pressure wasn't the goal. It was the signal that every vessel, every organ, every cell was receiving blood the way biology intended. What ancient civilizations prescribed as medicine, modern cardiology now measures with precision instruments and randomized controlled trials. What seemed like folklore, passed down through Egyptian papyri, Greek medical texts, Ayurvedic manuscripts, and Chinese pharmacopoeias, was molecular truth waiting for technology to catch up. Your cardiovascular system responded because it evolved alongside these plant compounds for millions of years. Garlic was prescribed in ancient Egypt, found in King Tut's tomb as medicine for the afterlife. Greek physicians gave it to Olympic athletes for endurance and soldiers for courage. Roman legions carried it. Traditional Chinese medicine classified it as pungent and warming, moving qi and blood. Ayurveda recognized its ability to balance vata and kapha. Our ancestors lacked blood pressure cuffs and imaging technology, but they recognized vascular benefits through careful observation of human response across generations. The compounds in garlic evolved as plant defense mechanisms, sulfur-based molecules protecting against pests and pathogens. But mammals, including humans, learned to harness these compounds for healing, detoxifying them, and using their signaling properties to regulate our own biology. This isn't alternative medicine positioned against conventional approaches. This is foundational medicine, validated by modern measurement, but known through millennia of human use. 1 clove daily seemed unremarkable, but your biology recognized the molecular signal. Your arteries understood what you were offering. not a pharmaceutical override forcing change through synthetic pathways, but a molecular conversation in a language written into human biology through countless generations. And they responded the way living systems respond to wisdom encoded across millennia. They softened, they healed, they remembered what flexibility feels like.